As you may know, every month I do a live stream where patrons can ask me anything. And last month, one patron asked me to look into the research on intermittent fasting. And I did, and I found it to be really interesting. And I told them that I would consider doing a public main channel video on it if a new, really interesting study on it happened to pop up. Because, I like to keep things topical here. And what do you know? A new, really interesting study on intermittent fasting just popped up. So let's go. Possibly obvious content warning before I get started. I'm going to be talking about weight loss and calories and general health stuff. So if those topics are no good for you, give this video a skip. If you're not sure, I will give you the too upsetting didn't watch summary right here at the top. If your goal is to lose weight, but you can't or don't want to purposely restrict the amount that you eat, restricting the hours in which you eat might be a successful strategy for you. However, there's not enough evidence that intermittent fasting has any real benefit beyond weight loss. And actually, here's another little warning. I am not a doctor. I'm certainly not your doctor, and you should consult your doctor before you make any drastic life changes for your health. Also, I feel like I need to acknowledge the fact that there's a number of people in my progressive audience who think that weight loss is never a good thing, that it's always capitulating to a misogynistic male gaze kind of audience, and it's not really about health and well-being. I don't agree with that, but I do respect that every person has the right to make their own decisions about their own body and their own health. As I've alluded to in past videos on this sort of topic, I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease when I was about 15 years old, and I've spent the past 25 years learning how to deal with it, how to not be completely incapacitated by it. And to do that, I have had to keep my weight below a certain point and also worked to maintain muscles, particularly in my core. So for me, weight loss is an important aspect of remaining mobile and happy. So yeah, there have been a few times in my life when I've noticed my back starting to hurt, realized I'd let my weight creep up a bit too much. So I focused on calorie counting in order to lose that weight. Weight loss can seem really complicated, but it truly is a case of taking in fewer calories than you burn. When I track my calories, my weight loss adheres almost exactly to that general rule of 1 pound of weight loss for every 3,500 calories below your maintenance. It's a simple formula, but of course it's not easy. It's hard because food is delicious. But ultimately, I do get a weird sense of enjoyment from it. Paying attention to everything I eat and tracking it and seeing the results, I find it kind of satisfying. But there are a lot of people who find that overwhelming, which is understandable. The act of paying attention to everything you eat and counting the calories can become obsessive for a lot of people. Many people also assign moral value to their food, and they start to feel like failures if they eat more than they planned, or they may eat too little in order to speed up the process, leaving them without adequate nutrition and increasing their chances of giving up and overeating later. Enter intermittent fasting. This is the idea of only eating or drinking your calories within a certain window of time. For some people, that's 12 hours, like between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. For others, it's within 8 hours, like between noon and 8 p.m. Intermittent fasting, or IF, has been the subject of a lot of research over the past decade or two. And recently, it's become a pretty hot fad, which means that in addition to the science over here, there's also a lot of misinformation over here, a lot of wild claims that are based on small, inconclusive studies, or sometimes based on nothing at all. There are two categories of claims for IF: weight loss and everything else. So first, let's talk about weight loss, because that's what this recent study was about. Time-restricted eating without calorie counting for weight loss in a racially diverse population was published this week in the Annals of Internal Medicine. And I'm pleased to announce that it is a randomized controlled trial, which of course is the old gold standard for studies like this. It means they compared 3 different groups that totaled 90 obese people. 30 who restricted their eating to an 8-hour window from noon to 8 p.m., but who did not count their calories. 30 who ate whenever they wanted but did count their calories, and another 30 who just kept on doing what they were doing without any restriction. That was the control group. They followed all these groups for an entire year, and what they found was that while the control group did not lose any weight at all, the other 2 groups lost about the same amount, between 10 and 12 pounds. The IF group ended up kind of naturally reducing their caloric intake to about the same as the group that was purposely counting calories, probably because the fasting group wasn't doing any more late night snacking or drinking. The fast was moderate enough that they cut out about 400 calories, which they tended to not overeat when their fast ended the next day. That's great news for people who can't or don't want to deal with the annoyance of counting calories. There is a but, though. Both the intermittent fasting and the calorie counting groups got regular input from dietitians who taught them about healthy food choices and gave them cognitive behavioral training, which the average person does not have. So we can't really say if this is going to work in the real world with someone who doesn't have that kind of support. So if you do try IF and you're not seeing results, you might want to talk to your doctor or a therapist or a dietitian who can help you learn better strategies. So that's the news on weight loss. It might work for you if you don't overeat post-fast and if you know how to make healthy choices. But as I mentioned, there are a lot of other claims made by people promoting IF, like slowing down aging, reducing inflammation, lower blood sugar, avoiding cardiovascular disease, cure your depression, develop telepathic powers, etc. Pretty much all of these benefits that aren't directly tied to weight loss are based on the idea that there's some benefit to putting our bodies under a controlled amount of stress. And by stress, I mean it in the same way that exercise puts our bodies under stress in order to improve our bodies. And there might be something to those claims. Researchers have found some evidence for a lot of this stuff in rodents. When it comes to people, it's a bit less convincing. Cochrane did a systematic review. They found evidence lacking for changes in blood sugar and cardiovascular disease, for instance. Doesn't mean it can't be there, but right now we don't have the data. Another systematic review in 2021 found that people who fasted had lower rates of anxiety and depression. But again, the evidence was pretty weak. The conclusion is what I keep seeing over and over for every benefit of intermittent fasting. It's safe to try it, meaning that people who don't have disorders like diabetes, they're generally fine to fast. They don't tend to starve themselves or develop eating disorders. And maybe the fasting will help, but there's no clear evidence yet. There are a lot of people online who are trying to figure out how to maximize their results. Will only eating in the morning be better than the evening? Some research suggests that that's true. Is a 16-hour fast better than a 12-hour fast? Some research suggests that that's true. But the reality is that there just isn't enough data. Like, the jury's still out on whether fasting makes a significant difference at all on these markers. So there's no way we can say which type of fasting is better than another. This is one of those areas that I personally find really interesting because it seems to be something where you yourself can do a little science experiment on yourself. If your doctor is okay with it and you're curious how it might affect you, the research suggests you can just give it a go. Pick the 8-hour window that you prefer, restrict your eating to those hours, and then see what happens. You know, do you have more energy? Do you have less anxiety, fewer aches and pains? Maybe it's placebo, but who cares? If you end up feeling better, great. And if you end up not enjoying it, no harm. Just don't get weird about it. By which I mean, don't get obsessive, don't turn it into a disorder, and don't make it your entire personality. Don't bring it up at parties. Definitely don't go on to write a book about how eating between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. gave you magical powers. We don't need any more Gwyneth Paltrows, for God's sake. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.